I'll try and outline for you where I sort of have my head as your mayor and what I think we need to do as a community. I suppose the first thing I'll do is, not for the first time in my life, I'm going to disagree with Lisa. As Lisa said at the start, that she was a bit sorry that we've all had to gather here tonight to try and come up with a response to this sort of stuff. Well, I'm not sorry we've got to gather here tonight, because this is what makes a community strong. And too often, people stay at home and complain and don't actually come out to see how we can work together. But that's just me having a joke with Lisa. I know she's very happy to see people out here taking an interest in the issue. From Council's perspective, Council hasn't yet to get any sort of briefing from the WestConnex authority, or whatever they're calling themselves, about what the project is. And in fact, Steve Painter earlier mentioned the discovery of drill holes in the landing lights wetlands, and that was how, I guess, Council came to have some discussion with the WestConnex people about their need to consult. And they've had some meetings with our officers, but they haven't given us any detail. In fact, all I have is the gloss of the official WestConnex brochure. If you want me to get up here tonight and say that I'll go in there and I'll say no WestConnex, you're going to be bitterly disappointed, because I won't do that, but I'm going to explain to you why. There was some talk in Gavin's presentation about the powers of the government to compulsorily acquire land and to essentially get their way when they need to. And as your mayor, and as the person who will be involved in any negotiations that might take place about WestConnex, if I start from a position of saying no, then our community will be dealt out of the equation. Because at the government level, community will be dealt out of the equation. It's very important that you all say no, okay? You need to be saying this is not acceptable. But what I will have to do is what I do in my job with the union, and that is I will spend the first part trying to engage and asking questions. There are some questions that immediately come to our mind about what are the issues that the WestConnex brings. First of all, what is going to happen to our wetlands? The landing light wetlands in particular are, I think, the highest, I don't know the exact environmental terms, but they are of the highest calibre of any of the environmental areas that we have here, and they attract federal government funding. They're the only wetlands, I think, possibly in metropolitan Sydney, that attract federal government funding because of their environmental importance. So my first job is to say to the government, well, what are you going to do to make sure that whatever it is you want to do isn't going to impact there? Straight away, they've got a problem they have to solve. The question of the pollution that will come from the tunnel. We heard about stacks and all the rest of it. Where are the stacks going to be? Are they going to be in residential areas? What is going to be the impact on air quality? These are things that I will ask on behalf of our community, wanting to find out the answers. The other thing that I will have to challenge them to answer is the question of the southern extension, I think they call it. It's this very vague little yellow arrow in the book, sort of just disappears not far away from WestConnex, and it seems to be the commencement of the F6 corridor. From what I understand from the vague reports in the paper, is if they were to proceed with that part, the only plan they've got at this point is that it might come to about President Avenue. Now that's very important for us to try and get some clarification around that. Because if a whole heap of people down at President Avenue suddenly realise there's going to be 100 or 110,000 cars going past their door where they didn't before, suddenly your group gets bigger. So for a period of time, there will need to be that issue of exploring just what it is they've got planned, and that will be the role that I will have to play. And it's very important, I think, that whoever's the mayor during this process does not deal Rockdale out of the equation. Because I won't be the mayor in possibly 12 months or 2 years or 6 years or whenever this thing may or may not go ahead. But what we need to be able to do is start to put what I would term, from my experience with the union, is our log of claims. If you want to even consider building this, you must guarantee this, and you must guarantee this, and you must guarantee this. And the more we do that, then I believe the stronger position our community will be. Because as good as it is for all of you to be here tonight, this group, if this is the maximum number, cannot win. That is not enough to stop the government, because as upset as we will be, there will be people that actually believe that freeways work. I've noticed that freeways only seem to work when you don't want to drive on them. They don't work in peak hour. They will only ever work when you don't need them to. But there will be people, and I know in the area that I represent as a ward councillor down in the San Susi area, there's a whole heap of people who think the F6 would be fantastic. There's also a whole heap of people who think it would be a disaster. That's the group that I happen to be a part of. But there's a view amongst many that if we build roads, suddenly our problems go away. And I don't think that's right. Because roads, particularly into the CBD, all stop a good 10 or so kilometres short of where everyone needs to get to, and they all clog up. So there's a number of issues that we as a community need to address, and one of those is building the breadth of opposition. If your goal is to try and stop this, and that's something that will be a differential amongst many in our community, but if the goal is to try and stop it, you need more allies. I think you should be aware of what Steve said earlier. There's no guarantee we can win, but I'll guarantee you one thing: if we do not try, we will definitely lose. Okay? So, what you won't hear from me, the reasons I've just outlined, is a mayor going out and saying there'll be no WestConnex, I'll fight it to the end. Because I think when I do that, under this government, and my experience with this government on issues where the council and government need to work together, is that the government will work with you on the things they want to work with you on. And they will ignore you on the things where they don't have common ground. And if you want an example which is totally non-road related to that, it is the foreshore along Botany Bay. I wrote 4 or 5 times to the Minister saying we have a crisis here. You need to come down, you need to help us fix this foreshore and stabilise the sand dunes. And I never got anything. And then one day we got a phone call saying, we want to meet with you. And I was over the moon. So this is fantastic. We wanted to meet with us because the government wanted to give us a boat ramp, but no one had ever asked for it. But that was in the government's agenda, was their better boating program. And so suddenly we had to work out where the hell this boat ramp would go. And that is, I think, typical and has been experienced in the time I've been there, of how the government operates. So my job at this point in time will be to try and get as much information as I can. I will need your support in getting your list of concerns. I will need your support in saying, these are the things that are wrong. Because we need to be saying to the government, oh, well, we're not obstructionists, we just need you to guarantee that this isn't going to happen. And we just need to make sure that you can tell us what's going to happen here. And if we do that, I do it a lot in my job where I will often ask a lot of questions. Or I'll often say, well, that's good, except what does that mean over here? I'll never simply outright say no, particularly early on, because it's straight away, it's, well, what's the point? And what I don't want to do is have a situation where, particularly if we don't find that we're winning, that our concerns are ignored. Now that, to some people, will sound defeatist. It's not meant to be defeatist. It's certainly not meant to be a situation where you say, oh, well, we'll accept this provided this. But we do have to position ourselves. I'll go back to comments I made earlier about where a southern extension might come out, when that might come out, how long it might be before they completed something if they were going to do that. Because there's a whole heap of people living down my end of Rockdale, where I come from, that probably aren't too concerned about WestConnex at the moment. Because as far as they understand, it's to do with the M4, something happening in Newtown, St Peters area, a bit of widening, a bit of tunnel, but I don't care, I'm going to the beach, right? So it's very important that we try and draw these things out of the government. And if I want to give us a chance, that's the role that I will play as your mayor at the moment. So I guess that's sort of my thoughts on it. But you know, I just, for the record, I got elected in 2008 as a 5th Ward councillor, and not long after I got elected, Michael Tynan from the NRMA declared that the F6 must be built. And it was very interesting because he believed that there should be a tunnel from Loftus to Tarrant Point. And after that, all through St George, he didn't give a stuff. I've been in our local papers. I wrote a letter as I've been as a councillor for about 3 weeks, making it very clear that the F6 was not acceptable to me. And my view is that, and Gavin touched on it earlier, these proposals are yesterday's solutions to today's problems. And I don't say that because I'm a fantastic green or environmentalist.
Nothing wrong with that.
Right? There's nothing wrong with that, but I'm just saying that's not why I say it. I say it because I do actually see the traffic every day on the way to work, and it doesn't work. So for me, the idea that you would somehow, for our community, if we looked at the southern extension, as well as what's happening up here, that we would suddenly destroy or compromise our most sensitive environmental areas through the wetlands, that we would destroy, compromise or reduce the green space that we have in that corridor that has been there, as was pointed out, since about 1945. From 1945 to today, state governments of all persuasions, councillors of all persuasions, have allowed us to do infill development and development right throughout Rockdale and keep moving all our recreation area into that corridor. And now they're saying, oh, by the way, we need it. Well, I don't think that's good enough, because I'm more interested in planning than development. And what's happened there is a classic example of where governments at all levels for 70 years have failed to plan. And now our community runs some real risks in terms of our common good and our common property, our open space. There's some environmental issues that are important to do with the wetlands, and we have, as I said, some very unique urban wetlands in Rockdale. And then there's just some pretty simple questions like, do you want a freeway going through the guts of your city? I don't particularly want that. Do you want half of the community cut off from Botany Bay? No, I don't. Now I know most of these people probably never vote for them anyway, but all the people in the big houses along Grand Parade would love this to happen, because suddenly they've got access to the bay but no one else has. There's a whole heap of things that aren't necessarily great technical, they're not necessarily great technical or environmental issues. It's just about what our community is going to look like that comes out of this. And it's not good enough to be told as a community that we, the government, have a plan to increase our capacity to deliver economic growth through roads, to do whatever the argument might be for it. And by the way, you know, you people are just going to have to put up with the byproduct of that. And that's essentially what I feel, or where I feel the direction of this is heading. And I think one of the things that concerns me is we're now 4 months away, 4 and a bit months away from the state election. And if the government's return, they'll claim a mandate for this stuff. You notice that this stuff is being linked with electricity privatisation to justify all of this. What real information do you have about what this means for you? What real information do you have about where the routes are going? Now, I actually think, I'm very pleased that my friend and Labor Senator has been saying, Steve Camp has been saying, you need to come clean on what is proposed. People need to know now. They don't need to find out in April. And I take the point that Gavin made earlier. A lot of concepts here. A lot of concepts. Oh, this is the idea. We're not going to tell you what it actually means. I don't think that's good enough. I don't always win my arguments in politics, but I don't think there's anyone that could say that I've tried to mislead them down a particular path or that I've said one thing and done another. I think you've got an obligation to be upfront about what it is you want to do so that people can assess for themselves whether or not it's in their interest to support that. And I particularly don't like the fact with both WestConnex here and then possible southern extension that Rockdale is potentially going to become a thoroughfare for everyone that wants to get somewhere other than where they live. Now, I don't accept that we should bear the burden for people who make a decision to go and live in Wollongong because it's nice, it's near the beach, whatever else, but still want to work in Sydney and don't want to catch a train. I don't accept that we should suddenly bear that burden. There are other options in public transport. I don't pretend to have got into as much detail as Gavin has, but I do think that it is not good enough for us to continue to take this view that can build roads, make them bigger, and they'll be better. And everything will be fixed. It won't happen. The M4 doesn't work in peak hour. The M5 doesn't work in peak hour.
Doesn't work all day.
And in fact, they said, oh, spent all this money building your motorway, and the M5, oh, we've got to put an extra couple of lanes on because it doesn't work. It's still not going to work. They're actually encouraging people to take the most inefficient form of transport. So I think we've got an idea of the issues.